You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
It is Tuesday, October 29th, as we inch closer and closer to Halloween. Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill, the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. And oh, Rosie, I feel much better on this Tuesday morning. How are you?
Feels similar to last Tuesday morning, but everything in between has been shite. No, I'm feeling good, bud.
Hey, the good thing is, Rosie, we were talking about this last night. Columbus did exactly to Edmonton what they did to Toronto last week, right? It was the second half of a back-to-back. The Oilers coming off a win, and they absolutely rinsed them on home ice.
I know. I kind of had that in the background there when they were getting shelled by Columbus too. It's deja vu, but yeah, and they lost Connor too. So I'm waiting to see what happens with that. That sucks when the face of the league goes down, much like when Crosby was out with concussion problems in his prime. It's not something you want to see.
No, it isn't, and hopefully it's something short-term. You can't forget as well the Four Nations coming up in February, and it's going to be our first shot to see McDavid with Crosby and McKinnon, and could be our last shot. You never know with the trajectory of some of these guys. They get older and older leading up to the 2026 Olympics in Milan, but I thought it was really fascinating from many different components on the night. It just shows you day-to-day the NHL, how much can change, right? Even with the Maple Leafs perspective, obviously we're going to get into that on today's podcast, how the sky was falling to start yesterday's podcast. And now we're feeling a bit better about this team, right?
Yeah. I mean, you just want to see them. You know what they're capable of. They've shown it. You know they're not perfect and they have some warts that they're fighting through. But when you see them put it together, obviously it's a good feeling. And there's passion amongst the fan bases, and we follow them closely. And you want to see them access that good hockey as much as possible. And it's an indication that they're ready to take the next step. And how consistently can you do this? And how good is your best? And is this more conducive to playoff hockey? And there's all those things. So little simple victories like last night were certainly needed, and you can get excited about them, but it's all part of the process, right?
Did you get a chance to see this Dwayne Wade statue on Sunday? Was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life. And it brought back shades of that Ronaldo statue from a couple years ago. Like, look at that.
It's not great. The Ronaldo one was unbelievable, because there's a David Beckham one where they did it as like a gag and a joke, and they were pranking him, and they had this horrendous looking one, and he like walked away. He's like, "What are we doing?" But these two are like, I think Dwayne might have thought like, "Am I getting pranked here for a second?" Because it's not very good. And they've been making busts and bronze statues since the Bronze Age. Like, there's people that are good at this that can nail it. You can go to the museums and see them. Oh my goodness. There's incredible people can make an incredible product. And when you're doing something that's supposed to sit in front of a stadium to commemorate a person's career and championships, how do you not have a guy that's good at it, that can do it really well, that can make it look like the guy? I mean, his chin is so sharp and so square that even him, when he's like, "Who is that guy back there? I don't even recognize him," kind of like, what's going on? And then afterwards, everyone was talking negatively about it, and he backtracked saying, "It doesn't need to look like me. It doesn't need to look like me." I'm like, I think that's the point of a statue of yourself and your accomplishments. But again, I can't believe they're hiring people that don't quite get this thing done.
Hey, man, I had so many different questions seeing that go down in Miami on Sunday. Among them was the same guy or same person who did the Ronaldo one. And at which point, like in the process, were they like, you know what? This doesn't look exactly like a legend in these parts, Dwayne Wade. Maybe we should restart this thing. Because I think the pressure is going to get pretty immense here, where they're going to have to scrap this thing and redo it. Like, it's ridiculous to me.
Well, they redid the Ronaldo one. Are you saying it was the same guy?
I'm wondering if it is. Like,
Oh,
how are you so far off? Like, my
I don't know.
wonder is, do they pick somebody, or is it somebody with no recollection of who the person is? Like, that's all I can think of.
Yeah, I don't know. The Ronaldo guy got a redo at it, and he got it right, and it looks good. It was not good to start, and everyone knew it. And now the same thing's happening with Wade. I don't know. Why don't you just push it back? Like, start with the head, obviously. The body's not that hard. I mean, it's not like the face is everything, and it has to look like the guy. And once you start going that way, and I don't know what the process is. I'm not saying I could do it. I'm sure it's very difficult. And I don't know how you do a bronze statue sculpture like that. I can't imagine it's very easy, but you'd think that once you get into a permanent state and it looks like garbage, you would have some people overseeing it saying, we might need to take another crack at this.
I could picture it now. Leafs win the Stanley Cup, but they screw up the statue for Austin Matthews, and it's like Matthews, but it doesn't look anything like him. I could see it right now.
Look at that one of Ronaldo. How good is it on the right and how close are his eyes? Oh, too funny. It's the same guy that did it, I'm pretty sure, man.
It has to be,
How did
dude.
he do that project to unveil? Like, that's got to be the biggest project of his life, and he botches it that bad. Yeah, I don't know. You go to Legends Row though in Maple Leaf Square there, and
Yeah.
they've all got those bang on. Obviously, people are capable of it, but yeah, that would be leafy for them to botch that Austin Matthews one if he ever gets a cup.
There's somebody on this planet who is very capable of doing bronze statues, and certainly the person who put together the Dwayne Wade would just not looking good. And I just love the reaction from Dwayne Wade and his kid. But like, I assume this took a while to put together. At some point, you would look at it. A lot of people involved in the organization look at it and say, you know what? Doesn't really look like the legend himself, Dwayne Wade, and maybe restart the entire process. But I thought that was hilarious from Sunday. Nonetheless, we roll on. We got NHL insider David Pagnotta of the fourth period, NHL Network Radio hopping by in about 25. We're going to go through the ins and outs of the process coming together for the Jake McCabe extension, which we talked about yesterday. Trades in general, I would say it's very likely over the next couple weeks there's going to be a bit of roster movement with guys like Yarn Croak and Hockenpah on the men. There's a lot to go over here with Dave in a couple.
Yeah, I just wonder how likely the trades are. They just seem to be so difficult to be made this day and age, right? I don't know if you attribute that to the salary cap or what it is, but just to put together deals is kind of difficult. You look back in generations before this one where these blockbusters and like 8-9 player deals going all over the place. They were just the trades were it seemed to be more common, and now it's just very difficult this day and age. And I wonder, they've wanted to make trades. We know that since the summertime, and nothing's really happened. So you just wonder if it's going to be a waivers situation or if they're going to be able to move somebody, because ultimately, I mean, the people usually care about the player and they want to help him. It's like, hey, it's not that we don't like you or anything like that. You're just not fitting into this setup that we have, but we wish you the best in your career. We want you to go have success. We would like to help you and get you somewhere that wants you, that wants to play you, continue your career, as opposed to just burying you on waivers and maybe send you to the minors and you got to really start scratching and clawing. But obviously that's not always capable of happening with these GMs talking to each other. It's just not simple. It doesn't happen all that often.
Josh writes in, the Austin Matthews statue is already made. I'm not so sure about that. Crit Commander writes in, the Ron Jeremy statue is repurposed as the Austin Matthews statue. So there you go. You think Ron Jeremy's got a statue somewhere?
Statue of something, I'm sure.
I think he got in a bit of hot water a couple years ago. I don't know if Ron Jeremy's as big a legend as he once was in this world.
That was a little bit before my time, but I know of the guy, and like I said, statues of something maybe, but maybe not the whole thing.
I'm a little annoyed, man. We had the opportunity, and credit to producer Vic. A couple weeks back, we interviewed Matt Sundin. He has this infamous picture with Mia Khalifa, an entertainer, and we didn't address it with Matt's, man. We're never going to get Matt's again. I guarantee you of that. And that was our opportunity to ask him about that picture with Mia Khalifa, damn it.
We dropped the ball there. I can imagine he was like, I took 25 pictures that night. I don't even know who or what. And then all of a sudden it's all over the internet as a adult entertainment star. But hey, they like to get pictures with celebs too, man.
They do. I wanted to know the process, like how that came together. Like there was just so many questions we could have asked Matts about how he in fact got a picture with Mia Khalifa. But again, it'll never happen. Prompt all of you for super chats right here, right now. Questions, comments, or concerns, get those super chats in at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Prime Monday Night Hockey on Prime Video is here, the exclusive home for the NHL on Monday nights in Canada, a platform that the Leafs are now 2-0 on, by the way. As Rosie mentioned last night on X, can all 82 games be on Amazon Prime? That is a big time question as we break down this second consecutive win on a Monday night. Fans can watch Prime Monday Night Hockey on Prime Video at no added cost through their membership. Just check out the sports section when you're inside the app. Fans that currently don't have a Prime membership can sign up for a 30-day free trial. Additionally, students are able to sign up for a 6-month free trial at amazon.ca/Amazon Prime. Prime Monday Night Hockey. It's on Monday. It's on Prime. And they're 2-0 on Prime, Rosie.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I tweeted that thinking, this is a repeat of last week, and they seem to bring their best stuff. And we didn't see the best stuff before, and we didn't see it after. And then boom, Monday night on Prime, away she goes again. So no, it was pretty solid, man. I don't know what. Again, they're trying to access their best stuff, and when they show it to us, it looks pretty good. And I think the job right now is consistency and finding that game. And it's not like a magic formula, man. You can see it. You can see what they're doing that brings them success, and it's just I don't know if it's bad habits or a mindset or a willingness to change. But when they go back to their old style of playing, which is a little bit fancier, a little more pull up, a little more, it's just fancier, higher risk hockey. And when it doesn't work perfectly, it goes the other way too fast. That's why it's dangerous. It's turnover hockey that ends up not just in your end, but in the back of your net. And you just can't risk that in the NHL. And when they play that north-south straight line hockey, when it doesn't work, it ends up behind their net and they end up in a puck battle. And I mean, that's what you have to, that's all you can give other teams. And when you do it, they play it damn well. And when they get their chances, they have the skill to bury it. And it's just, I don't know if Craig just really needs to reiterate that to the group and to have everyone actually buy in. But you can see it on the screen when they're playing the right ways. You're like, there it is. They're moving their feet like crazy. They're getting it deep. They're chasing it down. They're getting it back. They're making plays. There's no turnovers. They're not lost. There's no open ice. It's a formula that works. So it's just frustrating when they'll do it like they did last Monday and then played 3 games like garbage, absolute garbage, just completely abandoning the winning system and formula, which obviously is not the way to go.
It was far from a Picasso. If I have to hear a broadcast say Max Pacioretty was in camp on a PTO one more time, because he wasn't. He wasn't on a PTO. He had a contract signed. He was always going to make the team. I heard that a billion times last night. But other than that, I thought it was a great broadcast. There was an alien abduction about halfway through the broadcast. I don't know if you caught that on your end, but I wondered if the broadcast was going to stay on the air. And I wondered, quite frankly, if we're all going somewhere else.
I saw that on Twitter, but my feed never. It's just odd because it's a streaming. You think it'd all
Yeah.
be the same, but I don't know if geographically it's different. But I didn't have any of that going on. I saw the clips on Twitter with that screeching, ringing dial-up noise where looks like aliens are taking over, and I was just clear as day during all that. So it was odd that it happened to some people and not others. I don't know what Prime would have to say to that. Maybe internet connection stuff, or who knows? I don't know, but I did notice that on throughout Twitter and wondered why it wasn't happening for my feed.
Bobby writes in, okay, thank God my kid was losing her mind thinking a nuclear attack was coming. You're not the only one. All I can think about, by the way, it is so ridiculous, but Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph, the great voices of the Maple Leafs, do not travel with the team. And all I could think about while that was happening is, if this feed goes down, how the hell are they calling the game on the radio?
They won't. There'll be no feed. Yeah, I know. Jimmy and
Imagine having that much money and you can't pay these legends to go on the road and call the games. Crazy.
it is odd. They were on the plane with us. We used to bullshit with them, and you'd hear both of them tell stories about the wild days back in the day. And it was you'd have lots of media members on your chartered jet down to the away games, and they'd call the games. And Leafs fans are used to hearing their voices, so it's can't imagine money is the factor. No, it costs too much to get an extra hotel room, and that's all you're really paying for. Per diem, I guess you might get, but it seems weird, man, and kind of disappointing for people that enjoy listening to that feed.
All I could think about watching that broadcast, thankfully it did not go down. So a 6-4 victory for the Maple Leafs against the Winnipeg Jets. Was I the only one who felt a bit uneasy after that game? Like, in typical Leafs fashion, they made it difficult. Winnipeg was dead to rights. It was 4-0, ball game over. Then the Leafs got into penalty trouble. They kept letting Winnipeg back in. Like, I didn't think it was a complete effort. I thought it was a really good effort. Rosie, if you want to compare it to the game against Tampa, I think it was night and day. The Leafs were way better in that Tampa game. It happens a lot in pro sports. Like, you're up big, substantial amount of points or whatever it is. You take your foot off the gas. But I wasn't crazy about the second half of that game. I won't lie.
I'm not as worried about it as you. It wasn't like this total shutdown and they come back and smoke you. 5-on-5, they were absolutely dominant. And the only thing where they faltered was special teams. And I thought that, they took too many penalties, but a good chunk of them were weak penalties and they were one-sided to the Leafs. I don't think that there's anything against the Leafs or anything that just happens sometimes. So I'm not like pressing the panic button. And keep in mind, that is the hottest team in the NHL with the best power play. So it's not always that the Leafs have to fill their pants to let a team back in. There's another team over there throwing the kitchen sink at you who's highly potent and powerful at this moment in time. You've got to expect they're going to have that bit of a pushback. And when you get into whether it was necessary or unnecessary penalty trouble, you got to expect they're going to come back and make it. But when they made it close, boom, the Leafs would score another one. They try to catch up again, boom, the Leafs score another one. They did it a couple times in the game, and I thought had a commanding lead the whole time. While yes, I mean, just because they don't blow them out 5-rip, I'm not calling it a negative thing. I think that's expected, especially against the Winnipeg Jets and their potent power play. So I wasn't as like, I'll rag on them when they blow leads and let their foot off the gas and totally change their style of play and think it's point night when they get a big lead. I'll be the first to rip on them. I didn't think it was that way last night.
Yeah, it got a bit hairy, I won't lie, and I'll be the first to admit I had the Leafs money line, the Leafs puck line. I hammered them last night, and I was starting to sweat a bit. I'm like, just close this game out. I know they don't have Mariano Rivera, but like the fact that Winnipeg goes in the power play, they snap it around for 6 seconds, they score 1T. They got 12 power play goals in the year, and then conversely, you look at the Leafs. You're right, though. How do you get 2 power plays in the first 6 minutes of the game, and the rest of the game, no? There was no offense committed by the opposition. No more power plays to the Maple Leafs. It's really bizarre how that works out sometimes, isn't it?
It's weird. It cannot be easy to be a referee, but the consistency sometimes, I mean, that Holmberg, like of all the things, the Holmberg penalty, like of all the scrums and battles and
I know.
stuff, your arm goes up for that. Like maybe he had a weird view and thought it was more vicious. And it's just like to already be piling up the penalties and then to just take a real softie. It's kind of like, come on, man. And I mean, that Benoit one, it kind of looked bad, but you watch it and he's totally on his edge. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I just got kind of whacked in the toe. I guess I'll just fall down now. And up goes the arm. And it's kind of frustrating. It did seem one-sided last night without a doubt. Um, and I don't know if subconsciously the referees are going to play the score a little bit, but it kind of seemed that way. And again, I'm not one of those ones that think the league's out to get the Maple Leafs. I just don't buy that. Other people think the league's out to help the Maple Leafs. I just don't think there's conspiracies going on like that behind the scenes. It's just the way it shakes out. And last night it didn't shake out in their favor. I would like to see some more consistency out of the officiating, though. It's been a problem since the beginning of time, basically, because it's not an easy job.
A lot of positives to grab without question. As we were calling our shot on yesterday's show, the Leafs own the Winnipeg Jets. That's now 6 straight wins against them. Hellebuck now 7-10-3 in his career against the Leafs. They end that 3-game winless skid, which is great to see. But without question, the big story of the night, Rosie, was the Pacioretty, Tavares, Nylander line, who were outstanding, and the 12th career Hattie for John Tavares. Man, just a stern reminder, still pretty damn good at hockey.
Yeah, he is. He's got the ability to do it, and man, we've been talking about line combinations forever, power play, formations and combos, trying to find something that works. And boom, there's a prime example. You mix things up and let's try this. And Patches was scratched not very long ago, and now let's put him with this top 6 line. And it just all of a sudden you're like, Willie Tavares and Pacioretty. It just looks like it fits. You could see it. And then when you see it fit and they go off, it's like it's chemistry. You can't really write it down on paper on why it works, but it does, and it makes sense. And when you see it, that's why you mix up those combos. And I mean, I think Sheldon Keefe was looking for that for several years and just continually was looking for that. He never seemed to land on anything that he liked, but it looks like that's a line that could absolutely work. They complement each other well. Some people question the foot speed of John and Pacioretty not being good enough to be on the line. I think they get around the ice pretty good and they're smart enough to know where they go. Certain players, like, you look at Rob Niedermeyer, like just positionally sound defenseman as there ever was. He barely had to skate out there because he was just always in the right place. Like there's guys that don't need to go 150 miles an hour in order to have success in the league. And those guys seem to be getting it done just fine without being the fastest guys in the league. And they're complemented well by Willie. So it was great to see a line that has that much chemistry. Hopefully it's not a flash in the pan and they continue that.
Yeah, small sample size, but early returns, they were electric. They were outstanding. They combined for 4 goals and 5 assists in that victory here against the Winnipeg Jets. And again, a turn back the clock type night for John Tavares. I think it's important to bring up the slow start for JT was you'd have to think a lot to do with the illness where he lost like 8 pounds, right? Like I think the last couple games he's looked more like JT. And if there's the one thing we've learned from his career, consummate professional. And every time you look, Rosie, he's always hovering around a point per game. Like this year is no different. He's got 9 points in 9 games.
And nobody ever said he's not good. It's just, is he worth $11 million of your cap? And the answer is, well, no, he's not worth that much. But that's what you had to do to get him when he was more in his prime in order to be the winner of all the suitors that wanted his services. It's just the way it goes. And that's where he's at. And reminds me of Darnell Nurse in
Yeah.
Edmonton. I mean, oh man, is he the whipping boy of so many fans that just can't stand him? But it's like, he stands up. His sick fight he got in this week, like just throwing bombs. He's physical. He's got some leadership abilities. He's playing the power play, block shots. He's a pretty damn good D man, but he's just not worth $9 million. So that's why he takes so much heat. And I think, last night's a great example of why John Tavares, still a damn good hockey player, just maybe not, to the level of eating up $11 million. But that's the last year that this is going to happen. That's how it was designed. That's what you should have expected. You just be happy he's still producing at he's not like he's super old, but he's getting up there and guys start to somewhat slow down. Having a night like that is a reminder that John still got lots left in the tank.
There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but I thought it was another really strong outing for Max Pacioretty, 3 apples. I like some of the plays he's making. I think he's the most physical he's looked in his NHL career. As I mentioned on the show the other day, I think it's quite clear and definitive. The team went to him and been like, you got to play a heavier brand, a heavier style if you want to fit in this roster. And I think he's taken that and ran with it. I like how simple Pacioretty's game has been, and the production has followed along. I think he's looking stronger and stronger, man.
He does. When you look at him out there, he just looks like capable and aware, and he knows where to be, and he's waiting for his opportunity, and he's doing things to force the chances. And when he gets them, he buries and he creates the chance and he makes the play, whether it's a setup or finishing. He looks like he just looks like more than he belongs. Like other guys are out there just kind of like, just running around trying to make something happen, hoping they don't make a mistake, hoping something goes well for them. He's not. He seems like he's in total control. And again, he did come into the organization on a PTO, and then we kind of knew that a contract was inevitable, correct?
Yeah.
So call it what you want, but they got him with no risk to try him out, see how he looked, see how he fits in. And it was evident right away that, no, this guy's got enough to be on this roster for what we're going to have to pay him, which is peanuts. And he has stepped up to the challenge and looks all kinds of good, man. OEL, Tanev, him, who's the best addition on this roster this year? They've made wicked moves, and a lot of these convincing wins are large part due to the additions of those types of players.
Yeah, last time I asked you that question in this podcast, you gave me all 6 new players. You didn't. So, Lorentz, you want to go with Lorentz this time? You want to go with Stolarz?
Oh yeah, Stoli too. Yeah, Lorentz, man, I'd like to see him. It's tough on that fourth line to get the amount of opportunity, but I'd like to see him do a little more crash and bang, be a physical force, run a guy through the wall and get a couple bangs at the goalie with some ozone face-off, some ozone time. Be nice to see him step up a little bit more, but season is long and he's got opportunity to do so. But I like him as well. He's just not standing out like those other 4.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Did you want to comment at all on the power play, or is the sample size too small to make an assessment on the new units?
What's left to say, man? It's not there. They're still looking.
They looked better last night.
A little bit. It looks a little more structured, like they knew what they were doing. But these little no-look drop passes, and then nobody's there, and the guy just gets it and dumps it, is infuriating. Like on my U13 hockey team, like we're really preaching to the D-man specifically. You can't make the pass without looking. Sometimes they just panic, get it, and just wing it over to their partner, and he's not even there. You have to look first before you make the play. And they love these little drop passes. I would just like to switch sides with it, which they do sometimes, or get it deep and then move it low. But these little drop passes, I mean, everyone's chasing and forcing. You're dropping it without knowing for sure the guy's there. And then you get the turnover and they dump it. It just is such a killer of the PP. And I don't know. I really think that simplifying and losing that little edge of cutiness is what's going to help them get over this hump. But I don't know how long this is going to last, man. It is not good. It is not good at all. And I just don't know why that level of talent. It's not like you have a bunch of ragtag group of players that aren't real power play specialists, and they're all trying to figure it out. These guys have been playing power play since they were 6, man. They've always been high skilled players. Maybe there's too many of those guys and not enough, straight line goers, but I don't have too much to say. It's the same shit. They're still looking for it, man.
Yeah, again, early power plays in this game, 3 for 32 now on the season, 0 for 2 in the game. I will say for the first time in a while, they looked sort of dangerous. They had some opportunities. I like getting Nyes out there on PP1. I like the Pacioretty look. Like, at least they're spreading the wealth. And
Yeah.
as we talked about it going into yesterday's game, like, what's the worst that can happen? You can go 0 for 2 and you're still struggling on the power play. But at the very least, I thought there was some danger attached to the power play for the first time in a while. The other thing that's been getting at me is, like, I love Morgan Rielly, but the fact that he doesn't take any slap shots, like, really, he's not a threat to shoot the puck. I love the way he's really good at skating and playmaking and all that, but from a power play standpoint, he's not a really good look, and not having a shot really kills it for me, man.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's tough time to say that as he walks down Broadway on Hellebuck and roofs at Bar
Good
Down
shot.
and had a shot there. But yeah, I know what you mean, and I agree on the power play. It's not like it's Ekholm walking down Broadway with that shot that is just going in the corner and no one is stopping it. He kind of like throws a little hoper in there, and you're not sure if it's like a shot for a rebound or off the pad or if he's trying to score, and it doesn't seem to have much of an effect. But I mean, if you have Morgan Rielly on your roster on the back end, it's kind of hard to be like, you're going to sit on the shelf for the power play. Like, it's just, he's capable. He has the offensive ability. He's played with those guys. But I mean, as time ticks on, when that percentage just keeps getting clicked away lower and lower to the point of, I don't know if they're embarrassed now or, they probably should be. It's just going to get more embarrassing as things don't go. And as they get more opportunities, you're going to have to do more and more drastic things to try to shake something loose. And you can always go back. But I mean, they tried it a little bit last night, like you mentioned. And it did look like there was some threats there. Sure, they didn't score, but on that first one, I'm like, hey, that was, that's a power play. You don't score on them all the time. More often than not, even the good ones don't score. That looked a little bit more threatening, like they did have something going, and it could be close. And why was that? I think because they mixed it up a little bit. So we'll see how much they're willing to do that. They certainly have been pretty hesitant to shake it up all that much. I mean, for all the bumps in the roads that power play's had, they've kept the core together for a considerable amount of time. I don't know. As time goes on, you're just going to have to keep trying new things. And because ultimately you just got to jog something loose, change the numbers a little bit, get on a different path, and then you can start going back to what you normally do. But right now they are in an absolute rut, and something's got to shake loose to get them out of it.
The chat's getting at me a bit. Morgan Rielly is one of my favorite players. All I'm stating, doesn't really have a threat for a slap shot from the point on the power play. Okay. I understand he sniped it a couple times this season. He's got a good shot. He's a National League player. Okay. Like, not everything we say is put out there to be negative, but I think you call a spade a spade. It's a reason why this Maple Leafs power play sucks, is there's no threat from the back end. So my apologies to the feelings I hurt in the chat. I love Morgan Rielly. Love the way he's playing this year. You notice we're not talking about Morgan Rielly very much. That's because Chris Tanev's there, not really playing with Tanev, but the heat is sort of off because there's other options in the blue line. I love that.
Yeah, and McCabe just got a new contract, well deserving of him. I like Benoit. I know he's been taking some penalties lately, but I think some of them are kind of chintzy, and I do like how heavy he plays. And yeah, he has to stay out of the box, and Craig will be talking to him about that, and he's going to try to, I'm sure, address that and be conscious of it. But you take him out, and then what? You got Liljegren, Tim. Like, I'm sorry, you're not taking him out. Isn't helping the problem. I know he's taken some penalties, and I think he's going to rectify that. But taking Benoit out, I do not think is the answer. But yeah, it's just an OEL. Like, how good has he been since he came in? And Tanev is just quietly a machine back there that's super reliable. It as we thought, it takes pressure off of Morgan Rielly. He doesn't have to do everything. Before, he thought he had to score on the power play shutdown defense, jump up in the play, move the puck, block shots, be physical, protect the net. Like, come on, man. He was the only guy back there that really, it was all on his shoulders. And now it's the wealth has been spread. And I think it's allowing him to kind of exhale and be like, good, now I can just focus on hockey. I don't have the weight of the world on my shoulders. And he looks pretty good because of it.
I think depending on the opponent, I wouldn't be opposed to giving Benoit a night off. I think he was a regression candidate coming into this season. Like, he really burst on the scene last year, gets the contract extension, good on him. I don't think he's looked particularly good the last couple games, but who are you going to put in? It's not going to be Liljegren, right? That guy is just finished. Like, you wonder if he's played his last game as a Maple Leaf. Again, Phil Myers is playing ahead of him. Connor Timmins is playing. But on Benoit, like, I don't think he's looked great the last couple games.
And I'm not saying he's looked great. I'm saying his upside
like
is
the
higher
aspect
than
of
everybody
it.
else's. And if you're going to make a change, you better have a more well-suited player to go in to take his job to do better. Again, he's taking some penalties. That's something you can rectify. I don't think the answer is taking him out, because you're not going to replace him with anyone that's better. You're going to probably have more problems on your plate with a player that's playing higher in the lineup than he even should be, and he's going to be scrambling all over the place and probably shouldn't be in there. We've already tried those guys. They haven't done anything. I think Benoit's your guy. He just needs to clean up those penalties. And like I said, some of them were chintzy, man. He plays hard, and that's hard to find in this lineup right now. I say keep him in.
There's an aspect that this team has thoroughly been missing the last couple of years. Benoit certainly brings to the table that, and OEL just continues to impress me with how physical. Again, this guy was known for being very soft in his days with the Coyotes as their captain. I don't know if it's a Paul Maurice effect, but he's a much different player, and loving what OEL is bringing to the table so far as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. The following interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks. With the Charm Masterpiece program and unbeatable pricing policy, Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian-owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. As we bring in from the fourth period NHL Network and NHL Network Radio, it is Dave Pagnotta. What's going on, DP?
How we doing, boys?
Doing well. Lots to discuss on today's show. Obviously, the big victory against the Winnipeg Jets, but the Jake McCabe extension, which we got to yesterday. Can you sort of take us behind the scenes how all that came together?
Relatively quickly, Nick. I mean, up until, at some point last week, towards the end of last week, the discussion points were pretty much the same as they were in July. They had communication, obviously, going into training camp and over the course of the summer, but nothing really materialized until Friday, I believe. Friday, Saturday, things started to heat up, and then obviously Treliving and Brian Bartlett, Jake's agent, were able to kind of hammer this out over the course of the weekend. Didn't really take too long once they actually decided they wanted to get to that finish line. But the Leafs clearly wanting to solidify their back end for the next little bit. They get Jake in a pretty solid deal. A little bit of money's deferred. He's got a little bit of no trade protection. And a lot of it being paid out in, at least in the first year anyway. I think most of it's in signing bonus. But a good deal overall, a little bit of deferred money, not much. I think just under $1 million. But overall, a good deal and a good piece of business for Toronto to get it done and get it out of the way. It kind of goes to show you that, sometimes these negotiations can be prolonged and drag out months after months after months. And sometimes it just takes, 48 hours to say, all right, the hell with this. Let's just lock it in.
And it seems, Dave, like it's pretty unanimous across, Leafs Nation that this is a good signing. Everyone seems happy with it. Seems like it's deserving. They like the term, they like the value. Do you think that they got him on a team-friendly deal? And do you think he left some on the table that maybe he could have got if he wandered into free agency?
If he kept up this pace of play, yeah, he probably left a little bit on the table. But he likes it here. He likes it in Toronto. He likes the group. And, are you going to, grand scheme of things, depending on where you end up and, tax brackets and tax elements kind of coming into play here, an extra $500K a year, probably wouldn't have seen much of that anyway. So you stay with an environment you're comfortable in. He likes it in Toronto, likes the group that's in place right now. So you maybe you take a tiny bit less. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm part of the unanimous here in thinking that this is a good contract for the Leafs. It's a good contract for McCabe as well. And all right, you save about $200,000 on the cap by deferring a little bit of money. Nothing wrong with that. And it helps Toronto out a little bit, at least in the immediate future.
For sure. And effectively, I think they've doubled down and suggested, hey, this is going to be our blue line for the foreseeable future, at least their top four. Do you like where they're at on the blue line right now, Dave?
Yeah, and they do too. They like their depth. That's why they haven't traded, Timothy Liljegren. That's why they haven't made other moves. They like the depth that they have and what they can alter on that third pair. You guys were just talking about Benoit and what he brings. They like to be able to have him come in and maybe interchange him in certain circumstances, depending on opponent. Having other guys kind of come in and out of the lineup to stabilize that back end when you've got your top four kind of locked in. So from Toronto's perspective, And from their coaching and management side of things, they like the depth that they have, and they like the main four that they've got at the top of that decor. And then again, have some other pieces that you can interchange.
Dave, obviously they're interested in getting this deal done early as it's finished up and signed, sealed, and delivered in October. Do you see other players on the roster, a la Matthew Nyes? Do you see the benefit in them? Do you think the Leafs will be quick to try to get him locked up? And who do you think that benefits putting the pedal down here on that one?
Yeah, I mean, with that one, it's kind of the same situation as McCabe's was. So unless something has really transformed in the last 48 hours or so, they're kind of where they were similarly to McCabe a week ago. That doesn't mean they're not going to ramp things up. And usually when you get guys that kind of lock into new extensions, the agents and for some of the other pending free agents will start to reach out and say, hey, maybe we should escalate talks, or vice versa. Sometimes the team goes to the agent and says, all right, we got one piece of business done. Let's see if we can move the needle a little bit in this particular case, whether it's Nyes or another pending UFA. I don't see right now or get the sense that there is a rush. Prior to the McCabe deal, I didn't really get that sense that there was going to be a rush with respect to Nyes. Let's see how he performs. And then there's going to be an open line of discussion, and we're not going to not pick up your call or reply to your text or anything like that. But at the same time, we don't need to itch and try to scratch that itch right away in order to get something ironed out, because they have that control. He's locked in for the season. He's an RFA. So there's no risk of potentially losing him unless, you want to talk about other elements. But I think from Toronto's perspective, they're comfortable with where things are at and where things could potentially go. I think they've got a good basis of where this could end up on a short-term option, on a bridge type of deal, or if you're going full-term, 7-8 years, I think they have a good idea as to what that's going to cost monetarily. So I think from Toronto's side of things, they're comfortable waiting it out. But at the same time, if talks escalate, they're not going to shy away from them.
You had a tweet yesterday on X that made me want to drive into Lake Ontario. It said, with McCabe locked in, they can shift focus and resume talks with other pending free agents like Matthew Nyes, who we just talked about, but more specifically, John Tavares and Mitch Marner, at which point I responded with resume talks, ? Why in the hell would they negotiate with these guys right now? Play it out, man.
Well, I mean, look, if you can get John Tavares locked in for a couple of years at, say, $5 million a pop, you'd say no to that?
Is that happening, though?
Well, I'm just saying, you're going to have those kinds of conversations. He's going to take a dip and cut. He's not going to be bat 11. He's not going to be a 10, 9, 8. He's going to take a decent cut wherever he ends up on his next deal. So if you're Toronto and you've had talks, English is hard, you've had talks with his camp going into this season and over parts of the offseason, just kind of, again, back and forth loose discussions. Why wouldn't you at least want to pick up the phone and say, hey, where are we right now? Is there an opportunity to lock in on and it would have to be a team-friendly deal and go from there? Depending on how you view Tavares, let's forget about last night's performance. Put that aside. If you view him as a guy that can be a mid-6 interchangeable player, be it on the wing or at center, do you value that as a $5-6 million player who's capable of putting up 70 points on the year? Or 60? Are you going to drop it? That's from Toronto's side of things. You want to make sure that you've got your depth locked in, not just now, but in the next little bit. Tavares' next deal, whether it's in Toronto or somewhere else, it's not going to be a 5, 6, 7 year contract. You're going to be looking short term. So from Toronto's perspective, pick up a phone, give his agent a call and say, are we any closer? Is there a little wiggle room? Here's what we're thinking. No. All right, cool. We'll talk later. Or here's what we're thinking. Oh, you're on the same page? All right, maybe it's worth kind of expanding these discussions and getting a little bit more heated with respect to hammering something out. Same with Mitch. I think that's going to prolong. I think both scenarios are going to prolong. But at the same time, it's part of their jobs to go out and have these types of discussions.
I think those discussions are going to be continuing for quite some time as the year progresses, but thinking more about the here and now right now, inevitably these guys are coming off long-term IR. I'm looking at Yanni Hakanpää. Inevitably's probably going to be ready sooner than later. The odd man out seems to be Timothy Liljegren. What do you think the future holds for him?
Well, it's no secret he would like a change. He wants to be playing regularly. And the Leafs understand that. They've gotten that message. Now, my understanding is there hasn't been a formal trade request or demand, but this goes back to the offseason. If you're not going to use me, might as well trade me. That's kind of where that process is. So again, going back to what I said earlier, Toronto likes their depth on D. They like the what they've got in their arsenal that they could put out in certain circumstances. But eventually, there's only so much playing time that can go around. So I don't get the sense, at least going into this morning, that anything is imminent on either Liljegren's front or Timmins or somebody else. But at the same time, they're open to having those discussions. I think the rest of the league knows that Liljegren is available as to the type of return or type of deal that Toronto would look to make. Honestly, I'm not very sure at the moment. I just know that teams understand his availability. It's just a matter of where Toronto wants to go in that direction. Do you want to hold out, maybe get a draft pick and fill up the cupboard a little bit for future moves? Or do you want to potentially package this player with other assets to bring in a more impactful player later on in the season? It's tough to make deals now because of the cap. So if you want to push things off, teams can accrue a little bit of space, makes things a little bit easier in terms of swapping out dollars. Maybe that's something that happens down the road. But it's no secret, as I said, that he would like a change or he wants the ice time. So eventually something's going to give there.
I would argue he's got negative value. Like, I don't know who in their right mind would offer anything for a guy who's played one game in 10 for the Toronto Maple Leafs, who always need blue liners and struggle on the back end more times than I know it's a bit different right now, but he's not even playing. In general, I think they've botched this whole thing dating back to the summer.
Yeah.
Like, why give him the contract extension if he's not going to play? With that in mind, do you have any idea of potential suitors? I know Utah definitely needs a couple guys.
Yeah, they're going to wait things out for now to see if they can still maintain things internally. But you're going to have additional options later on. And again, from Toronto's side of things, you don't necessarily want to rush into a type of deal because you've got an asset that you're not giving $3 million per season for 2 years for just anybody. There's definitely potential there. They see something there, but the way that their decor is structured, there doesn't seem to be a full-time fit. So other teams certainly value the player as well. From Toronto's side of things, it might make more sense that going the direction I suggested and packaging him up for an asset down the road. You look at some of the teams that have younger players available, or you look at teams that have potential assets on expiring deals that rather than giving up a top prospect, or a high pick, you can package in an NHL established athlete like a guy like Liljegren, who's still young and controllable because of his contract. So they've got some juggling that they would have to do here. But they've got an asset they feel that does have value. It's just a matter of finding the right fit and when that's going to happen. Is it an Anaheim later on? You try to look towards some of their assets ahead of the trade deadline. I don't think it goes that far out towards March. But some teams like to get ahead of things. Maybe that's a January, February post Four Nations break kind of situation for Toronto to play out.
What about up on the front end there? Calle Järnkrok's held in pretty high regard in this organization. He'll be coming back soon. Who do you think is going to be the odd man out when he comes back?
Well, there's some teams that were poking on him during training camp. I'm not suggesting that's going to happen now and he's going to be the guy out, but they do have a little bit of depth, bottom six depth, I guess, that they can play, and he's interchangeable. He can play multiple positions, and that does have a little bit of value there. One team I always wondered about for him was Los Angeles. The Kings have been looking for a 4C and somebody that can kind of stabilize the middle of their bottom six. That could be something later on that they kind of circle in on. If Järnkrok happens to be the guy. Toronto doesn't have a ton of cap flexibility. Järnkrok's at 2.1, something like that.
Yeah.
In terms of his cap hit. So may give them a little bit more flexibility down the road if they see that they've got a player that can fill, that potential void. I think you have others that are going to generate some interest as well. And we go back to Liljegren in terms of being a young asset. Nick Robertson is still somebody that, would be in play if Toronto decides to move anybody up front as well.
Do they have to move anybody right now? Is that what you understand? So. Is if Liljegren or if the two guys are coming back, does somebody have to move off the roster? Is that what's going on here? Or?
Well, I mean, they also have the waiver play. I mean, you could send Timmins down, and you'll have the full cap hit of his, which I think it's 1.1, to give yourself a little bit of flexibility there. So if you're confident that he's not going to get plucked on waivers, and you still have that asset and you're comfortable with it, then you have him playing in Toronto with the Marlies. Alternatively, if you lose him, Well, hey, you didn't get an asset back or a piece back, but at least you freed up the cap space. So I don't think there's a sense of concern with respect to how Toronto may maneuver their cap once they're, some of the guys that are injured get healthy. They do have options, but it's nothing that's going to turn or make them turn away from, looking at that accident. They're not going to need to. If they make a move, one of these guys goes out or gets sent down, they're comfortable with it from the sounds of things.
Lastly, I just wanted to circle back on the whole Marner and Tavares conversation because, as you know, it really intrigues me. I
You're
want
a
you
big
to
Marner guy.
handicap this thing. You know this. What are the chances that both Marner and Tavares are re-signed in season by the Maple Leafs?
If they're willing to take team-friendly deals, then I think the chances would be decent. I think Tavares would be more inclined to go that direction than Marner.
Yeah.
Depending on what his numbers are like at the end of the season. And I anticipated going into the year that Marner would have a pretty good year. He'd eclipse the 100-point total. That was my projection this season. He's gotten close the last little while. Plus, it's contract year, and I know you love that too, Nick. So unless that is going to be a scenario where he's saying, all right, I'll take a little bit less to stay here, then maybe that gets done midseason. I just don't foresee that happening. I think there's more likelihood of Tavares going that direction versus Mitch Marner. But if, this prolongs and Marner puts up, let's say 101 points on the year, he's going to cash in on a big deal somewhere if it's not here. And I saw your little troll tweet earlier this week or over the weekend about Chicago.
It's not a troll tweet.
Nick doesn't do that, does he?
No, I know. I'm sorry, my mistake. I know. But Chicago and they're a team that are going to be interesting over the course of next summer. If Marner's available, that would shock me 0% if they go all in after him.
Hey guys, to wrap up, I just fear that this team is going to make the same mistakes again and just lock themselves up to 3 guys right now. Obviously, Tavares is not going to get that same type of coin. And I won't lie, I lose sleep at night thinking about that. Dave, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
You got it, buddy. Sleep better.
I'll try. That's Dave Pagnotta, the Fourth Period, NHL Network and NHL Network Radio, bringing some goods for us on today's podcast. I don't know if you feel the same way, Rosie. I feel like we're headed down that slope where it's like, we've re-signed Mitch Marner with a full no trade clause. And it's like, here we go again. If we want to make those changes down the road, we can't trade these guys. It's going to be the same shit we saw this past summer where nobody wants to admit it. That's the reason why there was no change, is because they couldn't trade anybody.
No, I know the problems and the predicaments they have. And again, going with the same guys that, again, we talked about a recipe the other day. You can have Mitch Marner's not a crappy hockey player. It's not like, well, we would never want him on our team. It's the logistics of it. He's not going to take a really team-friendly deal. He has an ego. He's in his prime. He loves kind of, himself and the way he plays, and he's very good. He's an all-star, very rightfully so. So he's going to say, I'm not going to take a huge haircut to stay here where I take a ton of heat. So I just don't see that happening during the regular season by any stretch. And then to give him what he wants, I'm just like, all these ingredients, we've put them together many, 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 many times, and they've done nothing but fall completely short. I think you could get John at that $4.5 million after he's basically like cleaned house his whole career and be like, yeah, he'll take a team friendly one at this point in his contract. And he's proven, like he did last night, he's still got hockey left in the tank. He's come up big in the playoffs before. I don't mind that. It's Mitch Marner that scares me. You're going to tie your ship to this guy and you're not going to be able to go anywhere. I don't think that his play is conducive to the style of play that they need to start playing. I don't think it's conducive to the style of play that Craig Berube is trying to play. I don't even think it's that conducive to the style of play that they play when they have a lot of success this season. And I would love to see what they do, as if you look forward, in 2025, the free agency, they got a lot of big dogs coming back. It's not like you're giving them away from nothing, even though you kind of are. You give them away for nothing. You open up all that cap space plus John's. And now I promise you're going to get somebody back. You're going to get a big dog. And maybe it's one of those big dogs that's just the right piece of the recipe, piece of the formula, the pie that's going to get this team to where it needs to go. I don't know, but all I do know is that we've seen this group together many, many times, and not a one time has it worked out. I
hate that we got to preface every time we talk about Mitch Marner. He's a great player. I hate that. I hate that, but we have to do it because it pisses people off. Number two, the more I watch Willie Nylander and Mitch Marner, there is not a world I live in where I'm paying Mitch Marner more than Willie Nylander. I wouldn't even pay him close. I think Nylander is far and above a better player pound for pound than Mitch Marner. So if you like, that would be like even paying the guy 11 and a half sheets a year. I wouldn't even want to do it. I think he's a great player. I think he'll get his money. It won't be in Toronto for me. I'm just plain and simple. I don't want this organization to make the same mistakes they've made year after year after year, where they tie themselves into these guys and then they realize, maybe it's not working with these guys, and then you can't move them again.
They've already done that
Yeah.
many a time, and they run it back, and they have the same results. So that's the only thing. It's not. You have to preface it because the people who like Mitch and have the poster on the wall, and their kid wears his jersey, and he's a nice kid that took a picture with them. Fine, that's why you love Mitch Marner. We're not saying that. We're saying in this situation and in this environment, does it make sense? And even if you were like, I question taking him at 9 million, which he would never take. But I'm like, okay, now you got Mitch playing all those minutes for 9 million. Okay, that opens up what, 2.5 million for who? Not a difference maker or anything.
Yeah.
Get rid of it all and bring in the $12 million guy that is a difference maker, that does have the mentality, that does have that fortitude, that does play Craig Berube style, that does have leadership qualities, that can play in the playoffs and be clutch. We need that. We haven't had that. We know that. That's the only thing we do know, is that these guys have proven time and time again that they aren't really clutch. And you're not moving on from Matthews. You're not moving on from Nylander. And Tavares is going to take a haircut. So either you're running it back again or you're not. And we're having this conversation 3, 4, 5 years over and over again. I lean towards, I would love to see what this team looks like with a big change.
My bad that somehow, some way, the Leafs win a game 6-4, and we're caught talking about Tavares and Marner. But again, I think it's perfect. It's good to bring the convo up again because JT had a big night, and I'm right there with you. I think JT's going to get signed. I think he understands what he needs to do to stay in this market, and he knows if he can't meet those demands, then he's not going to be a Maple Leaf, plain and simple. I think the Marner discussion is going to be a bigger and grander one, and obviously we started it a bit today, but it's going to be something that festers all season long. Nevertheless, the Maple Leafs feeling pretty damn good, Rosie. A 6-4 win here against the Winnipeg Jets. Got off the schneid a bit. Wanted to ask you before we wrap, would you, goaltending-wise, they got Seattle on Thursday, the Kraken into Montreal tonight. Shane Wright's first visit to the Bell Center, by the way. Maybe we play that in our last call here. But would you go to Joseph Woll on Thursday against Seattle or back to Stoli?
No, I go with Woll 100%. He needs another crack at it. He needs reps. He needs to test that ankle, and he needs to get some confidence. He needs a win, and I think that's a great opportunity to do it on that Thursday night, then back to Stoli. And if Stoli would have gotten a shutout last night, then it's kind of tough, but Stoli looked just fine. Maybe he wants one or two of them back. Doesn't matter. He knows that he's not playing every single night this year, and it just makes total sense to go to Joseph Woll and see if you can get him to try to get up to Stoli's level, where you have what we wanted in the offseason when we got both these guys, is have two very capable goaltenders that are healthy and both able to get you a W.
I thought Stoli was fantastic. In fact, you reminded me of a goal that really pissed me off when Nylander took that delayed penalty. They stopped playing. They looked around. They stopped playing. You know why? Because as an offensive player, like, I'm not scoring this shift. Took it off. Jets scored 6-on-5, man. That pissed me off. Thanks for reminding me about that. But we're going to focus on the positives because the Leafs won today. Why are you laughing, man?
I like how you're getting fired up today. You got the whole Marner thing. Something pissed you off. I reminded you of. You're talking about losing sleep. I like this, Nicky.
I don't know. I maybe I'm the only one. I left that game against Winnipeg a little I was feeling a bit uneasy where I'm like, they showed shades of being that team that beat Tampa, but they also did some stuff that reminded me of the past, and that pisses me off.
But it was clear as day that the 5-on-5 was an absolute clinic and the other stuff wasn't great. Yeah, the PK, sometimes it's good. It wasn't yesterday, but they had so many attempts at it. And it's the most potent power play against you. You got to give them credit. It's the hottest team in the league by a million. Not one team could stop them this year. Clean 8-0. And then their power play, we know that it sucks right now. So the problems are obvious. And the stuff that that were question marks, can this team play together, blah, 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 playoff style hockey, it was fantastic. You're just sour because you had a big fat bet on the money line and you started to get your butt puckering up a little bit because you thought they were going to do the Leafy thing and let them right back in it, which they didn't.
That's an understatement. They still were up 4-0, won 6-4, but I'll take the positive. They won the game. I love this from our guy Dave in the chat. I'm still waiting for Nick to throw his laptop out the window. If you recall, I said if the Leafs don't trade one of the big four, I will throw my laptop out the window. Well, they didn't do it. So
Well, that's gonna leave me hanging high and dry like it does sometimes when your shit crashes, and I'm standing here like this going, "Welcome to the show."
it's going to be like the Amazon broadcast, like midway through last night, where it's like I really felt like there was an alien abduction taking place. And if they took Austin Matthews from us, that was going to be the last time I watched a Leaf game. So thankfully, Austin Matthews is still with us.
I still find it weird that I didn't get that and other people did. That's odd. I don't know if it's a geographical thing or what, but again, one other thing on that thing, like
Yeah.
when they just chip it out of the blue line, you hear the crowd. Oh, you hear the crowd respond on the Amazon broadcast, on the Prime broadcast, because something to do with the microphones. I don't know where they are or what the deal is, but it's the same buildings, and you get that vibe. You can hear the crowd react to small things, and it makes you more engaged in the program. It keeps you up with the play. Feels like you're there more than it does on the other broadcasts. The other ones you can't hear a goddamn thing unless there's a goal and the horn goes off and you can kind of hear the roar. But it's almost like lulls you to sleep because you can't feel anything. It's just if there's no goals or anything for a while, you don't hear anything. And on that Prime broadcast, I'm paying attention and like a little chip out of the zone and a little clap, 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 clap. And you kind of roll with the flow of play a lot more. And it's just simple microphone stuff. But the other old school broadcast should take a note because it's considerably better in my mind.
Hey, where was Messier last night's my question?
Yeah.
Was he like, the game's in Winnipeg, no thank you? That's all I could think about.
Maybe he was just pumping his the documentary or whatever that's coming out now that it's almost out. He's like, and my work here is done. I'm out.
Yeah, maybe that was it. But all I could think about, the game was in Winnipeg. And of the places I want to be in Canada, no disrespect to Winnipeg, I've never been. I've heard things. That's probably the last place I'd want to go. So
It's not bad. It's not bad. It's got its character and its charm, but it's not like it's Chicago or something. Let's be honest.
yeah. Edmonton next week for Amazon Prime, and it doesn't look like McDavid's going to be there, which kind of stinks. And you hope it's something short term for McDavid. But anytime a player goes home early from a road trip, you hate that.
Is that in is that at home or is that in Edmonton?
The game next week's in Edmonton.
Cool.
It's
Yeah,
not
so
Leafs. It's just that the Oilers are playing on Amazon Prime Monday Night Hockey.
Oh, sorry, it's not
Yeah.
against the Leafs. Yeah, that's no good, man. It didn't look very vicious at all, but and he kind of stayed out there for the shift and then went home. I don't know. At this point in the season, you'd probably take it easy with that guy. Go get some imaging. Like what if you think, I don't know, did I tear a little part of my labrum or my rotator? It kind of feels funny. I can't do that. Get his ass home and get the pictures taken, get the specialist looking at him and make sure you take care of that guy. He's your number one asset. So I don't think it's that scary that he went home. I would think they're definitely being careful. Depending on what they find out, who knows how long he's going to be out, but it's not great for the league or anyone else.
Yeah, bubble wrap that guy until July 1st, 2026. I'm counting down the days. We're roughly about 600 days away from McDavid hitting the open market and figuring out, I'm going to be John Tavares. Greener pastures. Let's go to Toronto. Let's finally win that Stanley Cup, and no more snapping and documentaries, right? You won't have to worry about that anymore.
Can you imagine like going down the stretch when everyone's like, are you not signing? Like, why are you not signing? And then he just goes right through the playoffs and just doesn't sign. Can you imagine the media storm that would be when he's just not signing and then ultimately just has to, like, would he just say, I'm not? I just don't think it's going to happen.
I'm just having fun. I think if Draisaitl's signing the full max deal, I think McDavid's right behind him. I'm sorry. I hate to say it because I would love to see McDavid in Toronto, but it's not going to happen.
Oh, it's too bad, but we can still dream until it's officially not happening. I think there's still a tiny little chance. You don't know what that guy's thinking.
Tell me there's a chance. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION. Reminder, all in uppercase. Today, I like the stagger this week in the NHL. But a game specifically I'm looking at tonight because it is Shane Wright's first game in Montreal. I was at this draft a couple years ago where he was snubbed. Ultimately, Juraj Slafkovsky's turning into a hell of a hockey player for the Montreal Canadiens. But I might play something around Shane Wright tonight, whether it's the shot prop or like an anytime goal. I'm feeling Shane Wright tonight against the Habs.
Well, spit it out. What is it, bro? People got their pens ready. They want to know what you're betting.
Shane Wright. We'll go with a point prop. Sorry, somebody was texting me saying 97 has his extension coming July 1. Well, screw you. That's somebody who I'm not going to name on this show.
Gotcha. Shane Wright. Few on the stock. I don't know why I always forget about this segment, but I'm like scrambling to pull my app up every time you bring it up. Like I'm shocked. This is the
I
first
got
time
another
I've
one
this
for
on the
you.
show.
Marc-Andre Fleury's last game, producer Vic gave me that. But I mentioned this on the NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast on Monday. You talk about money on the board, albeit I was all over Stamkos and his revenge return, and then Tampa ends up winning that game via Nick Paul and OT. I was going to play the Fleury revenge angle. I'm going to do it. It's his final trip to Pittsburgh. So give me the Minnesota money line. It is juiced a bit. Pittsburgh does stink. They're due for a victory, but give me Minnesota in that game.
Gotcha. I like it. I'm not betting today.
Okay. That's
I'm
it. We'll leave it at
I got
that.
2 bets from you. I don't have it. And I have been just filling my pants. The Leafs screwed me after that Tampa Bay game a week ago. My account, I should know better too. And when you think they're going to bounce back and it's the logical, obvious thing to do, they're just going to just completely flounder, just another one just because. And I am scared to look at my balance right now, but I'm glad you're doing well on the betting front.
Thank you. Don't force it, Rosie. Don't force it. So many thanks to Dave Pagnotta, the fourth period, for hopping on today's podcast, giving us the details on how the McCabe extension came to be, what could be up the pipeline next for this Maple Leafs team. We recapped, of course, the 6-4 victory against the Winnipeg Jets. Also looking forward to tomorrow's show, practice day. And I wonder, again, no intel on this, but the Maple Leafs Halloween party, wonder if that's happening tonight, right? With the day off tomorrow and then the Thursday game. That's probably happening tonight.
I guess that would make sense, wouldn't it? I always like the National League Halloween parties because they don't go to Target to get their costumes.
Oh, they do it
big, and they get makeup artists and professional costumes. It's always fun to see, and some of those are starting to already roll out, which is a fun time of year for that as well.
So maybe some pictures are released of that, and we could talk about the Halloween costumes coming up tomorrow. Continue to tee up this game against the Seattle Kraken on Halloween on Thursday. And also soon-to-be Hockey Hall of Famer Jeremy Roenick. JR is going to drop by this podcast again. Love having JR on.
Neat. Oh, yeah. Looking forward to talk to him again. I think it was last year we had him on last, so he's always got lots to say, and looking forward to that one.
Time flies, man. Jeremy Roenick is going into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I remember like yesterday, he scores that goal against the Leafs in the Stanley Cup playoffs and broke my heart. I think I was like 13 years old, man. It still stings.
Yeah, that was over 20 years ago, my man.
Whew. It stings big time. So we'll leave it at that. The Maple Leafs victorious. Great to see. Thank you to producer Vic. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys are fantastic as per usual. Your boy Will Farmer was in the chat and he wanted our recognition the entire podcast, but I didn't want to bring him up at all. I'm sorry.
Why? What's he chirping now?
He's just anti-Rosehill, man. He's just here to stir up the pot.
Is he the guy on Twitter that has a farmer name or something like that too?
No, remember that guy you had beef with last year?
I know who he is on the chat. I'm just wondering if he's the guy on Twitter too. I don't know. He likes to be a dick.
You have a guy on Twitter too that's after you?
No, he's fine. He's just a normal guy. He's Leafs Nation guy, and he's there, and it says farmer something with a tractor on it. And now I'm like, is that guy from the chat? But this guy doesn't bother me or say anything controversial. And I don't know. Well, you're going to have to come up with some good stuff to get a mention because it seems like you're just trying to be a dickhead.
No, it's exactly it. This Will guy in the chat just an absolute dick, and that's why we're just not going to acknowledge him anymore. He writes in, "Get your hand off it, boys." That was his final message.
I don't know what that means, but all right, Willie boy. Enjoy your
all
day.
right. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Wednesday. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.